Okay, this is a step just a little bit away from the root of storytelling, but I think it's really worth mentioning because a story, it's hard for a story to do its work, to do its job if it's not heard. And these terms up here are some of the ways that stories are being heard. How many in the room have a paid media budget or have been able to do advertising as part of their campaigns? Okay, some. I think I hear a lot when I work with different people that aren't as familiar with government communication. They're like, the government can't ever do advertising, which I think is a myth, right? Just look at U.S. Army recruiting. But in any case, this bleeds into that paid media space. I usually like to stay in the organic media space and the owned media space because I think that's what more and more of us do truly have control over. But if you do have a paid media budget, this is useful. Okay, so what is content marketing or branded content? These are buzzwords. This is the best definition I've found, and I'll do that. I'll break that rule of presenting where I read what's on the slide, but I think it's important. So, content marketing is the use of storytelling to build relationships with consumers by providing them with something entertaining or useful. So their interaction with your organization or your brand is, oh, but remember that time I didn't know how to do something, or I wasn't sure how to solve that, and then I did, and what is associated with that is your organization. Brand journalism, and the source for this is a guy named Joe Lazukas, if I'm saying that correctly, and I'm sorry if I'm not sure, but he actually went on a little bit of a rant in the article that's the source for this, but he said, people say, oh, I'm doing brand journalism because I'm blogging for, my organization. And I think blogging for an organization is great, but he advised a stricter definition of brand journalism, which is independent journalism, so a newsroom that is made possible by funding from a brand, but maintains that editorial and business separation of church and state that media companies and news companies do, theoretically. Native advertising, this is one of those terms that's sort of a capture for a lot of other things, but in general, advertising that mirrors the environment in which it appears. So that sponsored post in your Facebook feed. Native. Sponsored content, one type of native advertising. This is a brand-sponsored article or video that appears on a site or social platform by another publisher or influencer that is not the brand. So, for example, the work that we did with the Chemistry Council was in the form of a sponsored article that the Chemistry Council produced and placed on Politico. So it was sponsored content. This is where things get interesting because there are a lot of publications or news organizations as part of diversifying their revenue that have made in-house content studios. So you can go to them and sponsor an article on the site. It will be labeled as sponsored, it will be separate and designated separate from their editorial content, but they have built these in-house studios that actually pull from or are kind of built like an editorial team, so you can actually have your content sort of written in the voice of that publication.